Dear colleagues, in India, as everywhere, cats became neighbors of humans after the development of agriculture, when people began to keep reserves of grain in granaries, and this attracted multitude of mice. The cities of the Indus Valley civilization, or Harappan civilization, accumulated large quantities of grain, and it was only natural that there appeared domestic cats, who had come probably from more ancient cities of Near and Middle East. The presence of cats in the Indus culture was evidenced by a curious find made by archaeologists in the ancient city of Chanhudaro. It was a brick with a footprint of a cat overlaid partly by a footprint of a dog. Obviously, adobe bricks were laid down under the sun to be dried. When they were still soft, a cat, pursued by a dog, ran over them. After the downfall of the Indus civilization and the beginning of new Vedic and Aryan culture, for many centuries we have no direct mentions of cats in Sanskrit literature. It is only in the post-Vedic Sanskrit texts, in the last half of the first millennium before Common Era, and later, that we meet in the texts two basic terms for cat. The first one is marjara, to cleanse, purify, adorn, and so on. Marjara meaning the one that cleans itself. And this obviously points to a cat's habit to clean its fur by way of licking. And the second term is bidala. This is the word of unknown origin and probably borrowed from some pre-Aryan local language. It must be noted that in all Sanskrit texts of this period, the epic poems, the collections of fables like Panchatantra, everywhere we find these words only in the masculine, and the focus is on the male wild forest cat, tomcat, who is characterized as the terrible enemy of the mice. The cat may serve as a symbol of mighty enemy, even in the epic. For example, in the Mahabharata, one warrior, with the aim to humiliate another, says to this other warrior that in the future battle he will look before his supposed enemy like a mouse before a cat. Another specific feature of a cat in Sanskrit literature is his cunning that the cat uses while hunting for mice. As we know, a cat is able to pretend helpless or sleeping or dead, to lull vigilance of mice and then suddenly attack. This detail of the cat's behavior gave birth to a popular motif in many folklore traditions. There was, for example, a Greek fable by Aesop about a cat who pretended to be dead but was exposed by mice. The story about mice arranging funeral of the cat pretender who suddenly rises from the dead and devours them all was very popular in medieval Europe and later in Russia, and you can see here a folk print with this topic. Then in other countries also, in China, in Vietnam, for example, there was popular a story about the wedding of mice, where tomcat attends as a guardian and a guest of honor, receives some gifts, but eventually devours bridegroom and all the guests. In India, we have also a cat pretender, but of a very special kind. He does not pretend to be dead, but appears under the mask of an ascetic, a holy man, a preacher of non-violence and a vegetarian diet. The classical Indian story from the Mahabharata goes as follows. Once upon a time, a wicked tomcat settled near the banks of the holy river Ganga. He declared to the local mice that he is not anymore an enemy, but a friend, that he is now a religious mendicant, the ascetic, the yogin, and they can consider him now to be their kind and loving uncle. He also said that because of severe fast, he became weak and could not move without help. So he asked the mice to bear him every day from his place to the riverside for performing rites, and then take him back. The mice came in large numbers, and every day they took the uncle to the river and then returned. But the wicked cat every time managed to eat secretly one mouse, which was the last to stay with him. And after some time, the mice noticed that their uncle, this great ascetic, becomes fat, and their own number is reducing. Eventually, one old and wise mouse discovered in the cat's excrement hairs from the mouse's fur. Then all the mice ran away in fear, and the old cat stayed there alone to suffer from hunger. This story from the Mahabharata was illustrated by a part of the famous giant open-air bas-relief in the city of Mahabalipuram in the north of Tamil Nadu in South India. Here we can see a cat standing on the bank of the Ganga in the classical pose of a Hindu ascetic, on one foot with both hands raised above the head. The cat is surrounded by mice who worship him. It is interesting that above this scene with the cat ascetic, there is a central figure of the whole composition, of the whole this bas-relief, the figure of main hero of the epic, Arjuna, who is standing in the same ascetic pose on one foot with hands above. The image of the cat ascetic correlating with the figure of the great hero introduced into the generally solemn composition of this bas-relief a humorous note. There are many variants of this story in Sanskrit literature, in Buddhist Jatakas, in many modern Indian languages. This story spread even abroad in the countries of Buddhist culture. And through the translation of Indian Panchatantra in Arabic, as well as through mediation of Indian Muslims, some versions penetrated into the Islamic world. Image of the cat as false holy man, as symbol of hypocrisy, remained popular up to the modern period, especially among cultured people in the cities. Here you can see the popular print of the 19th century from Kolkata, featuring cat ascetic. Ancient theme here is linked to the issues of the day. Kolkata is a seaport with a large fish market, which was always great attraction to local cats. The sign tilak on the cat's forehead indicates that he is a sadhu, a holy man who had to confine himself to the strictly vegetarian diet. But under the mask of sadhu is hidden a market thief, greedily digging his teeth into the stolen lobster. She-cat in ancient literature appeared only in one of the Buddhist Jatakas, that is the stories of the Buddha's former births. Once upon a time, Bodhisattva, future Buddha, was born as a wild rooster, a cock, living in a forest together with his numerous relatives. In this forest also lived a cunning wild she-cat, who managed to eat one by one all the cock's relatives. One day, when the rooster perched on a tree, the cat came to the root of this tree and began to praise the cock's beauty. She said she is in love with him, asked her to marry him, and promised him the highest happiness if only he would come down to her. The rooster first replied politely that there can be no marriage between four-footed and two-footed beings, but when she continued to insist, he declared openly, he knows that she is a bloodthirsty predator who killed and ate all his relatives. So she was ashamed, went away, and never did dare to look at him again. This story must be understood in the general context of misogynistic attitude of the Buddhist monks who saw in women the main obstacle on their way to salvation. In the first centuries of the Common Era, the domestic cats appeared in India for the second time, probably brought by the Greek sailors from Alexandria, from Roman Empire. In Sanskrit texts of the period, the cat is opposed to wild forest animals as a gramya animal, that is, the inhabitant of a village, grama. These cats were admitted now to the village, even to the house, but they were perceived still as predators, dangerous animals, tolerated only due to their usefulness, because they killed rats, mice, and even snakes. This attitude to cats found its expression in mythology. This is a picture of Skanda, who at the time of the late Kushana Empire suddenly became a new Hindu god of war. But he retained also his ancient function as the leader of a horrible gang of the so-called mothers, female deities or demoness of epidemic and children's diseases. Those deities whom women had to propitiate by worship if they wanted their children to stay alive. You can see here, side by side with Skanda, a female figure with a cat's head. This is the main of the mothers, Shashthi, the sixth one, goddess of the sixth day after the birth, which is supposed to be particularly dangerous for the babies. Shashthi goes at night from house to house, kidnaps or devours children. Or she sends to steal children her servants, cats. The cat is her vahana, the animal on which she rides, and her vehicle and her symbol. There is a popular story about the origin of the cult of Shashthi. A wife of the youngest son in one family was a glutton. Each time when she stole and ate some food, she explained that it was done by a cat. The cat living in this family was beaten many times, but this cat was a favorite pet of Shashthi and complained to the goddess. The goddess promised to punish the young wife. And when this young woman bore a son, at the same night when she was asleep, the child disappeared. It was stolen by the cat. In the following years, 5 times more, she gave birth to a son, and the child was always stolen. In other versions, the cat devoured them. Her 7th child was a girl, and the mother tried not to sleep as long as she could. On the 3rd night, the cat appeared, grasped the child, and ran away. However, the woman managed to wound the animal, and then she followed the bloodstains on the ground and came to the great banyan tree. At its root, there was Shashthi sitting among multitudes of small children. The wife fell at the feet of Shashthi and asked for forgiveness from her and from the cat. She received back all her sons and the daughter and was instructed how to perform special ritual of Shashthi's worship, which included making out of dough a statuette of the cat and worshipping Shashthi in this image of the cat. Nowadays, Mother Shashthi is the main goddess worshipped by women in rural village India. The dark side of her image is mostly forgotten. She is perceived first of all as a kind protector of children. However, a cat remains in some people's consciousness a predator, a dangerous animal. This becomes obvious, for example, if we turn to the Hindi proverbs, such as, "The cat is the ant of the tiger," or, "If you want to see a tiger, look at a cat. If you want to see a murderer, look at the butcher." I must note that Indian Muslims in general were more friendly to cats than the Hindus, because according to a legend, the Prophet Muhammad blessed the people who are kind to cats. In the web, we may find nowadays discussions on such topics as, why are Indians scared of cats? Some Indians really believe that if you stay with a cat in one room, it may jump at your throat. Other people consider cats to be dangerous, especially to small children, but they cannot explain it. Or they try to give a scientific, so to say, explanation. For example, cat poop and hair can be fatal for children with weak immune system. But the true reason is the presence in their minds of the half-forgotten mythological associations connected with the image of Shashti and her cats. In recent years, Indians often wrote in charts in the web that it is mostly old people, traditionally oriented, traditionally minded, who dislike cats. The number of pet owners in the cities now quickly grows, and this is evidenced by the boom in the cat food trade. Originally, most people kept cats of foreign breeds, but now many adopt as pets stray cats and treat them practically as the members of the family. Thank you so much for your attention.